Hello. Get in here. Get in here. We're starting. Here we go. Thanks for coming, everyone. Our special Sunday live stream is here. Or not so special. Because I'm thinking of doing this on a weekly basis. So, today we'll be looking at part 2 of the Dark Theories of the Winds of Winter. We did part 1 last week, where we looked at the North and the Wall and everything beyond the Wall. And we had another vote. It was between the South, Essos, and King's Landing specifically. And by 1% people voted for the South. And so I've been digging around for more theories, and we're going to focus on the Riverlands, the Vale, the Westerlands, and the Iron Islands. So, King's Landing and Dawn and the Stormlands and Essos will be for future streams. So here we go. Yeah, it's all from the same post, from the old 8-year-old Reddit post. I forgot. I need to put it in the description. I'll do that after the live stream. One of the first A Song of Ice and Fire related Reddit posts I ever saw after I finished the books, when I went hunting for theories, and boom, I found it. And because of that, it's 8 years old. Came out after season 5, before season 6. It's a bit outdated. So we'll have a look. Have a look to see if any more pieces of the puzzle have been filled in since this post was released. So, for example, there's a Clegane Bowl post. A Clegane Bowl theory, rather, which feels a bit out of date, doesn't it? Right? Like, people don't really talk about Clegane Bowl anymore. So, without further ado, let's begin. Our first dark theory shall be... Oh yeah, we've got this set up, of course. The dark theories, the ones that are meh. It's over means they're not going to happen. We're so back means, hell yeah, it's going to happen. The first one being... And we've talked about this a lot in our Frey livestream. Red Wedding 2 will happen, but... Oh my god. Innocents will die. I can't spell today. This is what happens when you have one monitor and you've got to look at your iPad and your phone and your screen at the same time. Chaos. But that's what's fun about these streams, chaos. Red Wedding 2 will happen, but innocents will die. So the idea here, well, we know a bit about this, the Red Wedding 2. The idea is that Lady Stoneheart and the Brotherhood Without Banners will join forces with perhaps the Blackfish and some northern sort of bandits, broken men. Maybe Jaime and Brienne will be involved. Maybe they'll be forced into doing this. But there will be some sort of attempt by the outlaws and Lady Stoneheart to seek revenge on the Freys. In a, cruel, ironic revenge by performing another massacre at another wedding. So in particular, a Frey girl is betrothed to Sir Davin Lannister, Jaime's cousin. And so the idea is he will probably have a wedding at some point, probably at Riverrun. And who is currently at Riverrun, if not Thomas Evans, who is a bard, who is a spy for the Brotherhood Without Banners. So he's in there, he's hearing about all the plans. The idea is that one way or another, the Brotherhood will infiltrate Riverrun during this wedding and will perform a massacre. And will, it's Lannisters and Freys, their two biggest enemies, the two most hated houses in the Riverlands, basically, in one place, and they're going to be wiped out. What kind of form this will take, I'm not fully sure. Like, how are you going to have the Brotherhood infiltrate Riverrun, get past the garrison, perform a massacre? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it won't happen at Riverrun, we don't know, but give me your ideas in the chat. But some people aren't a fan of this theory, because they say it's a bit too on the nose. The villains perform a massacre at a wedding, well, they'll get their just desserts with their wedding being ambushed and they're all going to get murdered there. It kind of feels a bit, a bit cheap. But the point is that this wedding should not be a sort of cathartic, satisfying moment where the reader goes, yes, the Lannisters and the Freys are getting what's coming to them, because innocents will have to die. I mean, who's going to be there if this takes place? First off, we have Sir Davin Lannister, who is actually quite likeable. I mean, just because he's constantly roasting the phrase, that automatically makes him likable. But he seems like a good dude. Jenna Lannister, Jaime's cousin. You know, she's a pretty awesome character. And I'm sure there'll be all sorts... Oh, and whoever the bride will be. Probably just an innocent girl, right? And I'm sure there'll be lots of Freys attending who haven't done anything wrong. Maybe Oliver, Perwyn, you know, the wholesome ones who didn't take part in the Red Wedding. Maybe the children, the ladies, and, you know, the Lannisters. Jenna Lannister has 2 grandchildren. They've done nothing wrong except be Lannister. So what we might have is an emotionally conflicting massacre where all of these scumbags are taken out. So maybe Blackwater Frey will be killed. Maybe, Emmon Frey. Maybe some of these sort of slimy, nasty, murderous Freys are going to get killed over the course of this Red Wedding. But at the same time, we're going to see children and ladies who didn't take part in the Red Wedding and these characters we like wiped out. And if it's from the perspective, if it's the Riverlands, whose perspective will it be from? Either Brienne or Jaime. And neither of them would want to do this. But Jaime doesn't want to see his family get killed off. And Brienne is a good person. She wouldn't see this as justice. So it'll be from the perspective of a character who will hate what's happening, provided we don't hear about it off screen. But I feel like if it happens off page, that would be a bit disappointing. So it will just be a kind of a horrible climax. Not necessarily a climax, but a sort of a peak, a zenith of the strong theme throughout A Song of Ice and Fire of the cyclical nature of vengeance. How violence creates violence, which creates violence, which creates violence, and revenge creates revenge. And, you know, Elia Martell, in the books at least, has a great speech about that. About, you know, Gregor Clegane's skull. Where does it end? Right? Who are we going to have to kill next? And what does this skull give me? Does Oberyn come back to life? Will this skull bring his laugh back? Will it warm my bed? No. So, is it going to happen? That's the question. Personally, I can see this happening. Right? Something is going to go down. The Brotherhood are going to plan something major. I don't necessarily know if it will be a Red Wedding, if it will be Sir Davin's Red Wedding. It might be something a bit more low-key. Maybe the big Brotherhood plot will be the idea in the prologue that Jane Westerling and Edmure and all the Northern and Riverlords, all the Riverlords being escorted to Castle Rock from the twins will be freed, and that could be their big moment. But I feel like with spies in Riverrun, there has to be a massacre coming. And it will be brutal and it will be conflicting. Because in one sentence we could have a murderous Frey get their throat slit, and then the next sentence, a 4-year-old child getting an arrow through the eye. So, is it dark? Yes, it's dark. It's not as dark as the original Red Wedding, because there will be people who deserve it. But innocence will be there. So honestly, almost halfway, right? It's almost halfway. And the question is, will it happen? I'm going to say it's more likely than not. I actually think it's decently likely. So we're going to put it in the middle here and over there. And one thing I'll say, I don't think Walder Frey will be there. I think that would be a bit too on the nose. And the idea is that he's a very old man. He's losing his sight, his hearing. I don't think he's going to leave the twins. I think he's probably going to die at the twins. I can't see him being carried to this wedding. He might be. And in fact, some people suspect that he will attend the wedding. I remember the Fate of the Freys video me and Quinn did on his channel. There's a theory that Walder Frey will be maybe thrown in the river or thrown down a well or killed in a water-related way. Because in the Duncan Egg novella, the Mystery Night. There's a 4-year-old or a toddler, Walder Frey, and to Duncan thinks to himself, that kid needs to be punted and thrown down a well because he's being such a brat when thinking about Walder Frey. So some people think that's foreshadowing, but it could just be foreshadowing for what happens later in that novella, which is Dunk ends up throwing someone down a well, so maybe not. I think it's more likely Walder Frey will stay at home, the massacre will happen, and he will hear about it. And he'll hear about all his family going through this, and then maybe that will lead to his death will come after, maybe a heart attack or something like that. So what do people think? let me know in the chat. I'll read everything. I won't necessarily respond to everything. If you want to send a super chat so I can for an instant response, I'll appreciate that a lot. Like I said, this is basically my job, and you guys make it possible. So thank you for coming along. So Matthew said, I see the phrase male line dying out. The thing is, there are a lot of phrase, right? Saying the phrase male line, that's like 60 to 70 people. The phrase are mostly male. And I am going to be working on a video called Every Fray Explained, where I go through, you guessed it, every single one, which is insane, but let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah. And I don't think their male line would die out, but I think a lot will be killed off. Hello, Carl. Thanks for coming. Carl said, could they somehow call it a black wedding to contrast it with the red wedding? Yeah. Black, white, and red are deeply symbolic. Maybe, because we have the Joffrey's wedding is called the purple wedding among the fan base, right? Not within the world, whereas red wedding is called so within the world. The black wedding. Maybe. That sounds edgy enough for Lady Stoneheart, right? So, let's move on to the next one. So this one is very much of its time. This theory sounds like, it definitely sounds like it was written up 8 years ago. There we go. Sandor is never mentioned again. The hype dies quietly. So basically, Clegane Bowl does not happen. And Clegane Bowl was at its peak in the last few seasons of the show. People were obsessed with it. There were memes, there were those MLG videos, very much of the time. Honestly, I think they were a bit outdated at the time, to be fair. But it was a really, there was a r/Clegane Bowl is a really fun shitposty theory. But the thing is, as time has gone on, and as we've got our Clegane Bowl, right? We got it in the show, and it was kind of disappointing. Aesthetically, it looked cool, but it was a bit of a shame to see the Hound's journey basically be, he gets consumed by violence, and he decides to go out killing his brother, not accepting peace, but being violent, and then that consumes him, and he dies in the fire, which is not necessarily a terrible ending, but the show didn't really do much with him deciding to go down that route. They sort of led him in the direction of, going away from violence and self-healing with Brother Ray and so on. Then he just goes, no, I accept violence. And that was used as a way to, in the show, push back, to scare Arya off, to push away, to be like, this is what happens when you're consumed by vengeance. But it was presented in a very rushed, awkward way, right? Where the Hound and the Arya, the Hound and the Arya travel all the way to King's Landing, and then as it's collapsing, the Hound turns around, it's like, actually, no, don't do this, don't kill the Queen, lol. Vengeance is bad, anyway, bye. So it was very weird. Very weird. But in the books, obviously, we all know about the Gravedigger theory. Well, I say that, we might not. Some of you might only be show watchers. The Gravedigger theory is the idea that the Hound is alive after Arya leaves him for dead. In the show, it's after the Brienne fight. In the books, it's after a fight with Polyvar and the Tickler at an inn, and he's wounded and he's left for dead. But later, Brienne goes to the Quiet Isle, where all the Septons are, and there is a gravedigger with a hood, with a limp, and he has a very angry black horse. And of course, that sounds a lot like the Hound and his horse, the Stranger, his not so noble steed. And people think, people are like, oh, there's going to be Clegane Bowl, where it's not just necessarily the Hound will fight the Mountain. It's a very specific series of events. It's the Mountain, disguised as Robert Strong, member of the Kingsguard, will fight on Cersei's behalf in a trial by combat, and the Faithful put forward their champion against Cersei, because they're accusing her of regicide and incest and so on, and their champion will be the Hound, because he has now joined the Faith. As time has gone on, people have kind of turned against this theory, and I think I'm with them. I did enjoy the hype, I enjoyed the memes. Them fighting on the show was, nice popcorn fun. but I do think it's unnecessary. I think it's okay for his character to just retire. The Hound is dead, as Septon Meribald says. The Hound is dead. Sandor is alive, but he's living a peaceful life, not consumed by hate and bitterness and vengeance. And I think having him have an epic fight with the Mountain, we don't need that. Like, I don't think we need that. You could argue that maybe that was the original plan and it's perhaps foreshadowed with both of them fighting during the Hand's tourney, but I don't think it's necessary. I also don't think... So it's not... I don't think it's dark for that reason. I'm like, oh, no, because obviously this is a bit of a shitposty one, right? It's not dark because I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's fine. He's never mentioned again. I think that's quite likely. So I'm going to put this boy over here. It could happen. I'm not going to have it super confident, so I'm going to put it here. I think that's the end of Sandor. We may see him again, but not in the capacity of a, fighty, angry, bitter Hound. I think we may see the Gravedigger again, but probably not. Oh, Todd Howard himself, aren't you busy, Todd? Has sent me $2 super chat. Darkling Schemes. Thank you very much. Yes. Darkling Schemes indeed. These live streams are now officially Darkling Streams. That was someone's idea. Someone kept commenting Darkling Streams, and I forgot to reply to them, but I thought, yeah, that's going to be the name of my live stream playlist. Darkling Schemes. Einrod better say that. That's a reference to Einrod in Season 1 of Hot D, by the way. So what do you guys think about Clegane Bowl? Let's have a look. Yeah, in the show, Tyler says, in the show, the Hound ended up as a perfunctory to Arya's story. George doesn't tend to make characters reliant on other characters' stories. Yeah, the Hound is a bigger character in the show, and he did end up becoming just an asset for Arya. But it wasn't even done well. It was like an arc they gave her of abandoning vengeance in the span of 2 seconds because the Hound turned around and said, yeah, don't do this. Rohan says, the Hound gets resurrected by the Walkers and ends up facing his living brother during the Great War. Well, you say living brother. Undead brother, right? So undead white Hound versus undead necromantic Mountain. Undead Bowl. Zombie Bowl. Okay, now that's something else. I can get behind that. Carl says, I think the Hound and/or Brienne will be a Queen's Guard for Sansa somehow. Although I do think the Hound has earned his rest. I think the Hound has earned his rest. The Hound being on Sansa's Queen's Guard would also feel a bit weird, because he did help her and he was protective of her, but obviously there was a creepy overtone to the way the Hound saw Sansa. That being said, there's a creepy overtone to the way almost every male adult character sees Sansa. In the books, despite the fact she's a child, pretty much every man she encounters wants to bang her. Which is, it's like, okay, why? Why, George? Noah, thank you so much for $7. You're a legend. Thank you so much for supporting. Who do you personally want to take the Iron Throne? What I personally want is for a big dragon to burn it because it symbolically represents man's obsession and greed for power and maintaining the structures of power. Who do I want to take the Iron Throne? I mean, I do agree that I do think it won't go down like it did in the show, but I don't think there will be an Iron Throne by the end of the books because, the whole argument about who's going to take the Iron Throne is kind of irrelevant, right? The whole point is everyone's doing these petty squabbles and intrafamilial violence and internecine warfare while the bigger threat is happening up north. So I would be surprised if it ends with an actual person on the Iron Throne. I think it will end with a king. It's going to be King Bran, right? The show wouldn't just make that up. The Iron Throne will be gone. It'll be a King Bran. I don't know what that will consist of. Is it going to be like a Weirwood net secret police state? Like when Bloodraven was the Hand of the King? With Bran seeing everything? I'm not sure. But in terms of who do I personally think should be on the throne? See, I don't know. Because I can't sit here and say, oh, it should be whoever's rightfully next in line. Because obviously that's bullshit. Like, succession and feudalism, it's all bullshit. Power resides where men believe it resides, you know? It's a system that's there to keep the status, to maintain the status quo. And that status quo exists because the society and the culture and the foundations of that land means that, you know, that system has come into being and is being maintained. It's cyclical. I'm a bit tired, so I'm not that came across as completely meaningless. But yeah, what I'm saying is I can't be like, oh, it should be Stannis because technically he is next in line. Because like, well, that's not relevant. It doesn't really matter whether someone is next in line. A good ruler is not determined by their blood, who they are related to, who they are descended from. So I can't be like, oh, Jon because technically he's the son of Rhaegar, or Daenerys because technically blah blah blah. If we're talking about the contestants, the people who are the claimants of the throne, I would say Stannis, you know, he is a stern, just man, and he's the menace. But at the same time, there is some hypocrisy to his character, and there are some dark undertones to his character. I don't think... I appreciate the meme of the one true king, but I don't think Stannis would necessarily make the best king. Daenerys, yeah, she wants to... she is a bit of an underdog. She's representing the downtrodden, rising up against slave masters and oppressors, but we also don't know where her story's going to go. Because by the end of Dance with Dragons, she does seem set on throwing off the shackles of having to conform and compromise when it comes to Meereen. So I can see her going down a fearsome or brutal approach in the future. Maybe not Mad Queen Daenerys from season 8, but Jon has kind of proven himself to be a good leader, right? Which I think is kind of fun. He could be the secret son of a prince, but through merit and skill alone and popularity, he has been voted in as Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. So, in terms of who would make the best king, I think Jon could be a good king, like over time, with some good advisors. In terms of who do I want to take the throne, story-wise, it's hard to decide because we kind of know that it's Bran. It's hard for me to say, yeah, but I do think the books will end with Jon going beyond the wall, not because he's exiled by Grey Worm or some bullshit, but instead of becoming king, you know, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, or however many kingdoms are left, because he happens to be the son of a prince, he will be king beyond the wall because the wildlings have chosen him, just like how the Night's Watch chose him. I think that's the idea. That was a bit rambly. Oh, thank you, Bran, for the $10 super chat. You're a legend. Thank you so much. Thoughts on infighting, Brotherhood without banners, and Vale invasion leading to the extinction of House Frey? Yes. I mean, yeah, without question. I've done a lot of Frey videos. I'm pretty kept up. I'm pretty up to date on this. After I've answered this, I'm going to go back to the dark theories. So yes, I think what will bring down House Frey, not the extinction. I think it's too big to become extinct. That would imply the male line's completely wiped out. I don't think that's going to happen. There are a lot of male Freys, as I've said. But I do think it will be a mixture of things. Some people act like there's going to be the Red Wedding 2 as this big, almost like apocalypse that will wipe them all out. Like, no, I think we will have something like the Red Wedding 2, which will be a big massacre. We will have Freys constantly being picked off, hanged, as murdered by the Brotherhood without banners, and I think Freys will be killing each other. So Edwin, the heir to the twins, believes that Blackwater is spying on him and may have spies in Riverrun and may have informed the Brotherhood of Ryman going back to the twins so that they could hang Ryman, or maybe his own men hanged Ryman. So we could have it so that Freys are assassinating each other to move up the line of succession as things become more chaotic and Walder Frey dies and the symbol of stability is gone. We could have Freys contacting the Brotherhood and saying, okay, listen, my older brother is going down this woods at this time with this many men. This is what you need to do to kill him. Anonymous tip. And Vale invasion. So, yeah, the Vale invasion is the idea that Littlefinger will launch an invasion into the Riverlands, not the north, because in A Song of Ice and Fire, characters who announce their intentions usually don't follow through. And if their intentions are vague, that's where the twist comes, right? So Littlefinger is like, oh, we're going to take back Winterfell. That's coming later. Preston Jacobs sort of talked about this theory. The idea is that Littlefinger will blindside the reader, and maybe Sansa, and will launch a Vale invasion of the Riverlands by saying, because various Frey branches have connections to Vale houses, and so the idea is that these Frey branches will side with the Vale invaders to overthrow other branches to take power. So the Craighall branch will help the Vale so that they can take control of Darry. The Rosby branch will help so that they can take control of Riverrun, and so on and so forth. Maybe Walton Frey, who's married to a Harding and is the son of a Waynwood, or the other way around, can help, can take control of the twins from Blackwater or whoever's in charge with the help of the Vale forces. But of course this war would be a proper, full-blown civil war between the Freys, so I think a lot of the Freys are getting wiped out. But they won't become extinct, exactly. What was I trying to say earlier? I was really stumbling over my words, wasn't I? I was talking about the feudal system, existing in that medieval time, and I had something in my head and it disappeared. Oh well, maybe another time. So moving on, the next theory. Okay, this is an odd one. Brienne, or Brienne, if you're so inclined, becomes the Hound 4.0. Yeah. Damn it. No. Chaos. Wait, I can't go... Bro, what is going on? Okay. Let's try that again. My viewer count drops by like 50. Oh my god, we got this. Brienne becomes Hound 4.0. So some of you might be thinking, what do you mean Hound 4.0? There's only one Hound. Well, that's the thing. As I said earlier, the Hound is dead. Not literally, but the persona of the Hound, this gruff, bitter, cynical, rather monstrous man, has been put to rest. His helmet was put on a gravestone. Well, not on the gravestone, but on the grave that probably has the Hound's armour, beneath it. That was Septon Meribald burying the Hound, symbolically, and Sandor is now at peace. But the Bloody Mummers come across this helmet. In particular, the band led by Rorge and Biter, because after the war and Vargo Hoat sort of going insane inside Harrenhal, the brave companions / Bloody Mummers go, okay, our leader's crazy, we've lost, we need to flee, let's get a ship to Essos, let's do whatever. So they all split off and go in different directions. And Rorge and Biter and a few others head to Saltpans, I believe, because they want to catch a ship to Essos. And on the way they come across, quite conveniently, the Hound helmet on top of the grave. And so Rorge puts it on and becomes a fearsome looking warrior. And of course people think it's the Hound, so he continues to raid and pillage, and they commit all sorts of atrocities at Saltpans when they're not able to get a ship. So they burn it, they murder, it's described in quite detail, it's really awful. But people think it's the Hound. So, this evil outlaw, the Hound, who betrayed Joffrey Baratheon, is now committing these atrocities. He's become this, outlaw baron, this monstrous man. And then Brienne later kills Rorge. And the helmet is taken by a member of the Brotherhood Without Banners, Lem Lemoncloak. And if the Brotherhood Without Banners do take part in the Second Red Wedding, what a witness is going to say? Well, a man in a Hound helmet took part in the massacre of innocents at this wedding. And so the legend of the Hound will grow larger and larger, and he'll become the Hound will become this huge, evil, almost legendary figure. This villain. And so Brienne being Hound 4.0, I couldn't find that much about how or why, but the general idea is that Brienne will wear the Hound's helmet to hide her face scars. So she fights Biter, and Biter eats half her face. Horrifying chapter, but very effective. And so, as well as sort of hating herself for being ugly, she now has her cheek missing, right? So the idea is she'll wear the helmet after maybe killing Lemoncloak, or she will take the helmet in some way, and she will become the new Hound. And I guess the reason this is a dark theory is that by embracing the Hound persona, she continues the legacy of this villain, and that she becomes evil and starts committing atrocities. Yeah, it's not gonna. No, I don't see the point. Brienne's not gonna go evil. She's not gonna continue the evil legacy of the Hound. I don't think she's gonna wear the helmet. Why would she? Yeah, I don't quite buy that. I really like that the Hound's helmet keeps jumping to different people who do increasingly evil things, and the Hound has been built up into this big legend, even though the real Sandor is just being peaceful on an island. And I think it will continue to pass to different people beyond Lemoncloak. But I don't think Brienne will wear it and, turn evil. I don't quite see what the point of that would be. Okay, I've got another super chat, so I will quickly put this where it belongs. Brienne becomes the Hound. It's not going to happen, and yeah, it is dark in the sense of, Brienne becoming a villainous outlaw. So I'll put it here. Yeah, I'll put it here. But it's not going to happen. That doesn't make sense for Brienne's character arc. Okay, thank you, Todd, for yet another super chat. You're a legend. $5. I do have to insist though. You've got like 3 games you're working on, right? Why are you watching this live stream? Are you familiar with the Howland Reed? So Todd asks, are you familiar with the Howland Reed equals High Sparrow theory? It supposes that Howland is hijacking the faith as revenge for Ned by creating a theocracy. I am aware of that theory. One of the OG, this character is secretly this character. I don't think it's true. I think it's a bit goofy. The idea that Howland Reed is taking over the faith as this sort of theocratic populist to create a theocracy, to avenge Ned and screw over King's Landing and all the politicians and the Lannisters and so on. No, I quite like the idea that it's not a conspiracy, that the High Sparrow is just a pissed off guy, and that the Sparrows and the Faith Militant and so on are growing in number because it's a traumatized post-war society. Yeah, I'm not, because that makes it too much of a conspiracy for me. Okay, next up. Ooh, okay, so we know at the end of Dance of Dragons, Jaime is led away by Brienne to be captured by the Brotherhood Without Banners. So the idea here is that Jaime will be captured by the Brotherhood Without Banners and will demand a trial by combat. Jaime will fight Brienne and will have to go up against Brienne. Jaime will fight Brienne in a trial by combat, and one of them will have to die. So the Brotherhood will accuse Jaime of being a Lannister and being a scumbag and a criminal, and he will demand a trial by combat, and he'll go up against Brienne. The issue with this one is, why would the Brotherhood let him do that? Under Beric there was some sense of nobility to them. Under Lady Stoneheart, no, they hang Peter Pimple, who's pretty much a teenager, for taking part of the Red Wedding, and by taking part he gets someone drunk and then passes out himself. Not exactly one of the most villainous of the phrase. So I don't think if Jaime was like, oh, you're going to hang me for being a Lannister? I demand a trial by combat. I don't know why they would say, yeah, go on then. Unless, for fun, they make Jaime and Brienne fight as a kind of way of having them both suffer, or as a way of having Brienne prove her loyalty to Lady Stoneheart, perhaps, to spare her life, or to spare the life of Podrick. But yeah, it's not going to happen, I don't think, because it's a strange end for their story. For Jaime and Brienne's story to culminate in Brienne killing him, and especially for Jaime's story to culminate in being killed by Brienne in a trial by combat to not piss off Lady Stoneheart. What's more likely is they will team up against Lady Stoneheart and take her down, and that maybe Brienne will have to kill her, and that will symbolically represent her sort of killing the notion that she must always dogmatically uphold her promises and be quote unquote honourable and do what she, fulfill her oath, keep her oath. And that sometimes that doesn't work. If keeping your oath involves the deaths of innocent people, of good people, then maybe you have to reconsider. So yeah, it is dark, the idea that they'd have to fight and one would have to. I mean, Brienne would win, actually. I was saying it could be either way, but Brienne would win because Brienne is a good fighter. Jaime has one hand and he's training, but he's not good enough with one hand to defeat Brienne. So it would be Jaime dying. It's not going to happen, I don't think, because it's just kind of odd for both. As a conclusion for either of their characters, it's weird. And it is dark, though. It's slightly darker than Becoming the Hound. I'll pop this boy over here. Actually, I'll have... The next one is part of the same theory, but I'll have it as a separate theory, so... It's over. It's not happening. But here's a weirder theory, right? This is the idea that Jaime will be captured, as I said, but then the Brotherhood without banners will be ambushed. By Sir Robert Strong. Now, hear me out. Actually, don't, because this is crazy. So this was on that old Reddit post. You're probably thinking, wait, what? Yeah, so the idea is Sir Robert Strong, a.k.a. Gregor Clegane, a.k.a. the Mountain, will go to the Riverlands for some reason, even though he's needed in King's Landing. He will go to the Riverlands, he will ambush the Brotherhood without banners, and there will be a big fight between Jaime and Brienne and the Mountain, and either Brienne wearing the Hound helmet or Lemoncloak wearing the Hound helmet. Why exactly? Because it all links back, apparently, to A Game of Thrones, one of Bran's earliest visions. In fact, his first vision, after he goes into coma and he's getting visions by Bloodraven, and he sees a hound. He says that he sees a man with a hound helmet. He sees a huge knight whose visor opens and there's darkness beneath, which is, I think, is supposed to be not necessarily just the Mountain, but Robert Strong specifically. I think George had a undead giant knight as an idea he kept in the back of his head, and also a golden man. And people suspect that's meant to be Jaime. And of course, this is like early Game of Thrones. Maybe it'll never come back into play because it was a plan he had back when it was going to be a trilogy, and Jaime was going to be the villain and so on. But the idea here is that it will kind of fulfill that, not prophecy, but vision, by having the Mountain, Sir Robert Strong, the Hound, Lemoncloak in the helmet, or Brienne in the helmet, and the Golden Man, Jaime, and they will all fight in the Riverlands and get... they'll die, they'll get killed off. I don't. What is this theory? What is this? What's the point in this? Is it dark? No, it's just kind of dumb. And is it going to happen? No. That's the problem with these dark theories, is that they're either goofy or they're too edgy to happen. So that's just over here. There we go. How pissed would Cersei be if the person who's supposed to fight on behalf of her for the trial by combat just fucks off to the Riverlands? Thank you, Flippy Dippy Doo, for donating €2.49. You are a legend. If you just want to donate, that's fine, but if you want to throw in like a question, then I will answer it as soon as possible. Okay, so next up, sticking with the Brotherhood without banners, Podrick will meet his end. Podrick will be unknowingly slain by his cousin Sir Ilyn. So Sir Ilyn Payne is in the Riverlands right now. He's travelling with Jaime because Jaime is training so that he can actually at least be competent fighting left-handed and one-handed. And Sir Ilyn won't blab because he can't speak and allegedly can't read and write, which is odd for a noble, as I mentioned in my POV Slayers video. It's strange for a noble to not read and write, but it could be that people think he doesn't, or that he's given up on doing it because he's clearly a depressed man. But the idea here is that Sir Ilyn's in the Riverlands. Podrick, of course, is with the Brotherhood Without Banners, and perhaps Sir Ilyn and a bunch of Lannister troops will hunt down the Brotherhood to save Jaime, and they will burst in and they will kill a bunch of Brotherhood members, and Sir Ilyn will kill a young boy who he thinks is an outlaw, and it's actually Podrick. And he'll unknowingly kill his own cousin because they are both from House Payne, and they are sort of distant cousins of each other. So this theory sort of exists. This theory exists to just be like, oh, look how cruelly ironic it is that a Payne will kill another Payne. I'm not so sure it's gonna happen. It feels a bit. It does feel a bit. That's the problem with a lot of these dark theories, that they feel random. Actually, you could say that about most A Song of Ice and Fire theories. They're just kind of random. They don't necessarily. They're not necessarily good arcs for the characters. They don't necessarily fit the narratives. They're not thematically interesting. And this would just be a sort of depressing, oh, Ilyn killed his cousin, that sucks. I'm not sure what Podrick's role is. I have a feeling, because he's such a minor character, George doesn't necessarily have an ending plan for him. He's more there, and then with the Gardener approach, perhaps he will go down different paths. Perhaps he'll die. Perhaps he'll do whatever. Obviously, he's too young to become a Kingsguard, like in the show. Podrick is a lot older and very handsome, and he joins the Kingsguard at the end, which is more a punishment than anything, because it means he doesn't get to use the podrod. But yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think Podrick's end will happen. I don't think Podrick will be killed by Sir Ilyn. I do wonder what Sir Ilyn's fate will be, though. As I said in my video, maybe he'll get killed by Lady Stoneheart. You know, literally the man who killed her husband is in the Riverlands. That has to come into play, right? So Podrick will be unknowingly slain. That will be dark, because we love Podrick. He's just a child. And so that is, yeah. I'll put that up here. That is dark. It's over, or we're so back. Is it going to happen? Probably not, but I'm also not going to rule it out. It's not the most unbelievable thing. It's not like it couldn't happen, or that it wouldn't ruin any characters. It would just be kind of, oh, damn, okay, why? So I'm going to put it up here. And I have yet another super chat. I'm being a bit slow with the super chats, but that's what happens when you open Monitor. Thank you, Tater Nuts, for the $10. You are amazing. You're awesome. You're helping the channel. A lot of people think Jaime will work for the Brotherhood Without Banners in some way, which allows him to live. This is what Tater Nuts' question is. But that would require Stoneheart to trust him, which I can't buy. What seems more likely is they escape somehow. Yeah, no, not a question, but a statement. So, yes. See, I know, because some people say with the Second Red Wedding, they're going to force Jaime to help them by using him to get into Riverrun, or using him to exploit Lannister and the Freys, whatever. But yeah, why would Stoneheart trust Jaime? Why would it? What motivation would they have to be like, come on, help us out? And why would Jaime go along with it? He doesn't care about the Freys, but he cares about his family. He cares about his side of the family. What seems more likely is they escape. Yes, I think Brienne, Jaime, and Lady Stoneheart will have some kind of confrontation. Maybe it will end with Brienne killing her. But I think they will both get out of it alive. And from then on, I'm not entirely sure what their stories will be. But yeah, I'm not sure. Because if there is some big event like the Red Wedding too, it needs to be from the perspective of a character. If we hear about it off screen, that's kind of disappointing. It's not going to be as impactful. But how can it be from anyone's point of view? Because in the Riverlands, it will only be Jaime or Brienne. And why would Jaime or Brienne be witnessing it? Unless they're taking part in it, which they would never do. Or if they're forced to watch it, but how would that work out? Like, logistically, I don't know. But thank you for your super chat. You're a legend. I was a fucking legend in Gin Alley. A fucking legend! The Legend of Gin Alley. Cole Tanner better be in Winter. Just a cameo. Ooh, I wonder if Cole Tanner is a cameo in the CK3 Game of Thrones mod. Because Cole Tanner isn't in the books. That would be a fun cameo. Let me have a drink. Okay, we have one last Dark Riverlands theory. I will actually add a new one to my little notes because, yeah. So this one is, this is rough. This is genuinely quite rough. Walder Frey will die peacefully of old age. So everyone's going on about how he will die. Maybe he will not be killed in the second Red Wedding or thrown down a well as Sir Duncan so desperately wanted to do to the 4-year-old Walder Frey. Perhaps he will not have his throat slit by Arya Stark in an epic girl boss moment. Perhaps he will not be slain during a Vale invasion, killed by one of his offspring like Black Walder Frey. Maybe this cruel, evil man will simply die peacefully. To subvert the reader's desires, expectations, for him to get his just desserts, because that happens sometimes. Evil people kind of get away with it. They just die. How many villainous dictators in history have actually got their just desserts, and how many have just passed away peacefully? Yeah, quite a few, unfortunately. So I can see this happening, honestly. I can see it just being, he died, and sort of depriving people of that vengeance. So maybe the Brotherhood will say, okay, well, he's gone, so we're going to have to enact our brutality on someone else. But I feel like it's too much of a dick move by George. I don't think he's going to... Honestly, I don't think Walder Frey's going to have a satisfying murder-style death like in the show, but I do think he will die of old age / natural causes, but I think it will happen while he's aware that he has destroyed his family. So it will happen either like just before the Frey Civil War breaks out and he realises what he's done. It could happen during the Frey Civil War or near the end of it. It could happen after a second Red Wedding when he realises that his family's being hunted down. I think his death will probably just be like a heart attack or old age, but before that happens, he will be smacked down to size by reality, and he will realise what he's done, and that will sort of be the catharsis. Not all the way, not gratuitous, not fan servicey, but just sort of, your actions and your selfishness have destroyed your house, and he will know that before he dies. I think that would work. Flippy Dippy Doo said they didn't attach their comment properly. That's okay. Thank you for the €6. He said, I wanted to ask your thoughts on the Blackfish escaping to the Vale and running into Sansa. So instead of the Blackfish sort of joining the Brotherhood, as some people have theorised, or taking part in a second Red Wedding or whatever, when he leaves Riverrun, he's fleeing to the Vale. And he will bump into Sansa, and maybe he will, and in doing so he will prematurely expose her and throw a spanner in the works, in Littlefinger's plans, perhaps. And perhaps he will be a figure of sort of stability that Sansa can rely on, maybe a guardian, someone to help her. I don't know. Would what role would he play? Would he help bring about Littlefinger's downfall with Sansa? Would he help Sansa escape so she can leave the Vale plot, maybe? I'm not sure. I think it's more likely he will stay in the Riverlands. Because, he could go to the Vale because, he was he was there at the Bloody Gate. That's sort of where he lived. That's what his job was before the War of the Five Kings broke out. So, but I think it's more likely he'll stay in the Riverlands and try and free Edmure, fight against the Freys, that kind of stuff. Yes, Cole said, and I'll go through the chat more thoroughly. Once we finish each kingdom, I guess, we'll sort of pause and have a quick look at the chat. But Cole said, we need at least one baddie getting away, like Grima and Saruman at the end of Lord of the Rings. You never get 100% of the baddies. 1 to 2 always manage to slither away. Yeah, I think part of the bittersweet nature of the ending is that I think there need to be villains who get away with it. I think there need to be loose ends that are not tied up. There need to be monsters, killers, tyrants who don't get their just desserts. They get away with it, like I said. You said Saruman and Grima Wormtongue. They do so. They don't really get away with it, do they? Obviously, the scouring of the Shire is them getting away with it and inflicting more misery and pain. But Saruman gets his throat slit, doesn't he, by Grima in the book? So he does sort of get his comeuppance, but not soon enough. Oh, Bran has sent another super chat. $20. Thank you so much. You're awesome. I think you're onto something about subverting expectations. But is there a line that George R. Martin won't cross, i.e. the others win? Or perhaps won't cross repeatedly as to not cheapen the entire subversions? Love the channel, by the way, thanks. Thanks so much, Bran. Is your name actually Bran, or is it just Bran because Bran Stark? I'm not sure. So, is there a line he won't cross? Yes, of course. The others winning would be subverting expectations for the sake of subverting expectations, which isn't what it's about. Like, the others winning would just be a super dark, nihilistic, you didn't see that coming, did you? And that is bad writing. Unless it's set up in a way where the ending is meant to be sort of this dark, apocalyptic, cynical, nihilistic ending. But that's not what the series is. It's not super cynical and nihilistic. It's dark. It's also romantic. It's brutal, but it also has a heart. The ending will be bitter and sweet in equal measure. So yes, there are lines he won't cross. And of course, as well as subverting tropes and expectations, he plays into them. Because tropes are not inherently bad, subverting them is not inherently good, and vice versa. There just has to be a reason for it. So Oberyn being killed by the mountain, you expect Oberyn to win because it's David versus Goliath, and David wins. Except in this instance, David does win, but then Goliath quickly gets the upper hand afterwards, and you don't expect that. But what does that do, as well as being surprising? It pushes the plot forward massively, because it affects the Dawn plot, it affects Clegane's character, it affects Tyrion. So there's a reason for it. Or perhaps won't cross... Yeah, he won't repeatedly subvert expectations so that he doesn't cheapen the early ones. Yes. So, for example, one classic thing everyone calls out is the fact that whenever a character, as I mentioned earlier in the stream, every time a character says they're going to do something, it's not going to happen. And I think the issue is that he does that so often that perhaps if he keeps doing it, we'll start to notice it. And it will become less impactful. See, I caught onto that by Dance with Dragons, I think. There's a bit in a Sam chapter in particular. Because I'm a sucker. I always fall for all the tricks and traps that George sets. I always fall into it. I'm such a sucker when I read his books. But there's a bit where Sam and Gilly and Maester Aemon are travelling to Old Town via boat. And there's a line where they say, oh, Maester Aemon's old and he's dying, but all we need to do is get to Old Town and he can spend the last of his days chilling in the sun where he grew up as a maester. And I thought it was too much. It was too heavy for me. It was, laying it on too thick. It was that you're telling us, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we're so close to Old Town, he can I thought, well, he's probably going to die then, isn't he? And then in that chapter or the next chapter, he passes away. But it wasn't a big shocking thing for me, because I was like, well, obviously he was, because you made it too obvious that he would have a nice death at Old Town, so you've killed him off now to surprise us, but it wasn't surprising. And most of the time I do fall for that, but I didn't that time, and so I do hope that George doesn't go overboard and constantly have, we just need to do this thing. Am I right? Oh no, it didn't go, something else happened instead. Who saw that coming? John Cribbin, thank you for the super chat. Is Littlefinger poisoning his own son, Sweet Robin? We are going to delve into that very soon. In fact, actually, I believe we have almost finished the Riverlands. So that'll be in the Vale, but because you sent a super chat, I'll be super quick. Yes, I do think he is poisoning him gradually, and I think the ultimate plan is to kill him. Whether he will die, we don't know. Oh, actually, wait, your question wasn't necessarily, is Littlefinger poisoning him? It was, is he poisoning his own son? I kind of mentally skipped over that. The Sweet Robin being Littlefinger's son, I love that so much. That's such a cool, dark idea, and it works. I think it could be 50-50. I don't think we're going to find out. I think George might not even know. But the idea is that it's possible. Just like the Miller's boys being Theon's sort of bastard children that he kills instead of Bran and Rickon. We're not going to know, but the seeds are there that it could be so. Someone said the timeline doesn't necessarily line up with that theory. Maybe it doesn't. I haven't checked. So, I haven't placed this. So, Die Peacefully of Old Age. I could put it up here, but realistically, it's not super dark. It's just kind of shitty. It's like, damn, I want you to. And I do think it could happen. I think it's likely. So, I'll put it down here. And one more Riverlands theory. It's not in that Reddit post, but I will talk about it anyway. It's the idea that... how do you spell Relorism? Is it that? Where does the apostrophe go? Are there two H's? Relorism will spread throughout the Riverlands. So this is the idea that, well, it is sort of what it says in the tin, isn't it? That Relorism, Relorism, worshipping the Lord of Light, the Red God, will this sort of religion / cult will spread throughout the war-torn, traumatized Riverlands. I can't remember where this theory comes from. I think it's mentioned somewhere that is it solely that the Brotherhood without banners are basically Relorists and therefore it's spreading to the small folk. I can't remember the details of this theory, but the idea is that it will sort of gradually start spreading, and then the populace will start engaging in, the fiery sacrifices, and it's just adding more to the chaos of post-war Westeros. Because George just wants to keep stirring and make things more and more as chaotic as possible before the others invade. So because this just popped in my head, I didn't prepare for this one. I don't remember that much about it. Let me know in the chat if there's more to this. But I think, it would be pretty dark. We don't know that much about... We don't really know that much about religion in the book, so that's a topic for another time, though. But Relorism, we don't know much beyond Lord of Light, Great Other, sacrificing via flames, but who knows? If there's a rise in cult-like behaviour and sacrifice and so on, that's pretty dark. How likely is it? I'll put it in the middle. No, I'll put it on the side. I think it's kind of... Yeah. Yeah, let's kind of put it there. Actually, is it super dark? I feel like that's being a bit judgy. I'll put it down here. Oh, who cares anyway? It's not a real chart. What am I talking about? Okay. Now we are going to move on to the Vale at last. We finished the Riverlands. If there are any more dark theories Riverlands, let me know in the chat with super chats, and I'll address them. Because again, most of these are coming from, if you didn't catch the start of the stream, most of these are coming from an old Reddit post about dark theories. Right, so let's move on to the Vale. Actually, before we do that, let's check the super chat, because I don't ignore you guys. Oh, another super chat. Did I say let's check the super chat? I meant let's check the chat. This is the most super chats I've ever got in a video, so I'm like, oh my god, what? That's awesome. So it's getting the name super chat's getting stuck in my head. I can't wait for YouTube to steal like 55% of it, or however many they steal. What? Strong bad for you. Thank you for the $5. You're amazing. What do you think Bran's plans are for Theon? The Winds of Winter sample chapter hints to me it was Bran who called his name in front of the weirwood tree. The ravens calling tree is ominous. I don't know if Bran necessarily has plans for Theon. I think it's more that... I think Bran calling his name, I think, was more him seeing Theon and just sort of reacting to that. I don't know if he necessarily has a plan. And I know there's some theories, I talked about this in the last stream, the last Dark Theory stream, about Theon being sacrificed to the old gods by the Northmen. Stannis wants to appease the northern men, the clansmen. Theon is seen as a kingslayer. Sacrifice him to the weirwood tree, which Bran would witness. Maybe they'll try and do that and Bran will somehow stop it. Looking through the weirwood tree, maybe it will happen and then Theon's soul or mind or whatever gets absorbed into the weirwood net and interacts with Bran. I don't know. I don't think so. But Yeah, it's very fascinating to see where Theon's story goes. Because I don't really know. Back to the Iron Islands? Up to the Wall? I don't think he's just going to stand around being a bit pathetic like he was in the show, but who knows? Okay, so next up, let's look at the Vale. Okay. So, a famine in the Vale. The idea here is Westeros will sort of be hit by a famine. You know, post-war, winter is coming, it's kind of inevitable. And Littlefinger is hoarding grain. We know that a lot of the Lords Declarant have already sold grain. Littlefinger's buying a lot of it up, and he's hoarding it. And the idea is that he's doing that for several reasons. The main obvious one is to sort of control the Lords, to say, look, I have the grain supply, do as I say. It could also be to get rich, to sell the grain at a certain point in time. When it's most valuable, basically. When famines hit, when winter's there, sell it where you can afford to have the most outrageous price. Some people suspect that maybe Littlefinger is hoarding the grain because he wants to supply an army. So an army to take Winterfell back for Sansa, or perhaps an army for the Vale invasion, but also having a big supply of grain to give a marching army. That's not really logistically how it's done in medieval times. I'm no expert, but from what I understand, a large army marching across country, they had to forage and pillage to stay fed. It wasn't sort of like there weren't trains, railway systems to help with logistics and supply in that way. So I guess the idea of a Vale famine is that Littlefinger will make things worse just so that he can sell grain at a later date, or that he will deliberately keep the grain and not give it to anyone, so that the Vale starves. But why would he do that? That doesn't help him at all. That just creates that makes his position more unstable, surely. So I'm not sure. JPA said, control the food, control the people. I guess, but if you're Lord Regent and you're hoarding all the food, what's to stop the Lord Declarant just saying, well, fuck you, and overthrowing him? And do you control the people? Because if you're Lord, what you want... See, most Lords, even if they're brutal, they didn't want to terrorise their own people, their own peasants. Not because they care about them, because they need them. The peasants are part of the system. If you're deliberately brutalising and starving and exploiting the peasants to insane degrees, then what you're doing is reducing, in a cynical way, you're reducing their productivity, which means you're making yourself less wealthy and therefore less powerful and less influential. Because you need the common people to work the fields and the mines and all that stuff. You know, when you had tyrannical kings and lords, they were tyrants to their noble vassals more than they were the common people. Which doesn't mean that nobles don't abuse the commoners to their own end, because they can get away with it. Like, I'm sure there are serial killers and so on who know that they can get away with who knew they could get away with murdering common people and peasants and so on, because they're not going to face any justice. But yeah, I don't think he's going to hoard it to starve the Vale, because if he wants power and he wants to control places, why would he want a starved, weakened Vale? He wants the Vale to be strong, surely. Especially if he could invade the Riverlands or the North. Who knows? I think it's probably for money. Most likely. It's for money and to control the Lord's Declarant. Probably. So, is it dark? Yes. The Vale famine is very dark. I probably have to put it up near the top, because here we have Podrick dying. This is like the Vale starving to death. Not likely, because this is implying that it's intentional, and why would Littlefinger do that unless someone could enlighten me in the chat? Littlefinger's the Jordan Belford of Westeros. He kind of is. Okay. What's next in the Vale? Next up, okay. 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 Actually, let me know in the chat. Let's be a bit more interactive. Should I dive into the dark theories involving Sansa or Sweet Robin first? I'll do both, obviously, but what should I do first? Sansa or Sweet Robin? Literally the first comment that says one or the other, I will choose. Is the chat on slow mode? Okay. Someone said Sansa. Morangatang said Sansa. And to be fair, everyone else is saying Sansa, so... It's almost like people care more about Sansa Stark than Sweet Robin. That's strange. Imagine if Preston was in the chat like, Sweet Robin. Don't you dare talk about Sansa. Okay. So. Okay, here's the least dark one. Sansa will be kidnapped by the Mad Mouse. So, in A Feast for Crows, Brienne stumbles across a very short man with a shock of red hair, known as the Mad Mouse. He's a hedge knight. And he is looking for Sansa, because there's a big old bounty, right? Cersei's got a big bounty on Sansa. And later, we meet... His name is Sir Shadrich, by the way. Or Sir Shadrick. I think Shadrich. We see Shadrich again in the Vale. He's been employed by Littlefinger, along with a couple of other hedge knights. And he makes a couple of comments which implies he may know who Sansa is, that he somehow found out. Or maybe he accidentally stumbled across it. But that... Yeah, no, I think the idea is that he comes into Littlefinger's service, sees Elaine, Sansa in disguise, and goes, I recognise you because Shadrich fought in the Battle of the Blackwater. I think that's how he became knighted in the first place. So he would have been at the court in the Red Keep during that big post-Blackwater ceremony. He would have seen Sansa. It's a bit of a stretch, but who knows. Or he's been informed by spies or something, I don't know. But the idea is that the Mad Mouse will try and kidnap her and take her to King's Landing to face justice, where Cersei will kill her for murdering Joffrey, something along those lines. Torture her, kill her, give her to Qyburn, perhaps. A few issues with this theory. One is Cersei's not exactly in power in King's Landing right now. There's a bit of a power struggle, so if Sansa's taken back, I don't think the first thing that will happen is she'll be executed. I think it'd be a bit more complicated than that. Secondly, does it make sense for Sansa's story to go through the horror at King's Landing, escape, become a powerful, more independent, more Machiavellian political player in the Eyrie and the Vale, only to get kidnapped and sent back to King's Landing and go through all that again? No, it doesn't really make sense, does it? I've seen one aspect of this theory, which is that Sansa will get kidnapped, will go back to King's Landing, will be a prisoner, but then King's Landing will be taken by Aegon and the Golden Company, and then Sansa will use her newfound skills at the Vale of manipulation, perhaps even seduction, to get King Aegon the Sixth to marry her, and then she'll become the queen. I don't think it's going to happen either. I do ascribe to the whole Aegon marrying Arianne Martell. I think that's the most interesting path. Why is the Mad Mouse there, though? Why does he exist? What's the point in his character? Well, I think it's just tension and stakes. Because at the moment, there's not loads of stakes in Sansa's chapters, in the Vale. It's really interesting, and it sucks we didn't see it in the show, because I love to see her in a calmer environment, coming into her own, becoming more, like I said, manipulative, Machiavellian, political. But there does need to be a bit of a threat, a bit of stakes. So maybe the Mad Mouse being there provides that sort of tension, that sort of dark undertone. Maybe there's a kidnapping attempt that fails. Maybe Sansa outsmarts the Mad Mouse. Maybe the Mad Mouse ends up revealing who she is, either intentionally or accidentally, and then that scuppers Littlefinger's plans, and he has to announce her earlier on, and he has to improvise. Who knows? But I don't think it's going to happen. Her actually being kidnapped by him would be odd. Unless the kidnap then leads to something we don't expect, like the Mad Mouse is then killed and Sansa's taken by someone else, and that's a way for her to end up in the north or in the Riverlands or something. But most likely, No, I don't think it's going to happen. It would be dark, because the implication here is that she'll be taken to Cersei and basically executed for Joffrey's murder. So I'll put it up there with Podrick being killed. It's darker because no one likes Sansa. Gonna happen? Nah, probably not. This is looking a lot like my last live stream, isn't it? Where all the dark theories, I was like, it's over. Nah, not real, not gonna happen. Definitely not because I don't want it to happen. So the next Sansa theory, the dark Sansa theory, let's go with okay. Yeah, alright. This is lovely. So, yeah. This is the idea that Harry the Heir, who seems like a bit of a scumbag, will force himself on Sansa. I don't quite... Yeah, there's no point. Which seems to be my response to a lot of these theories. There's no point. It's just, this is edgy because it's dark and it's unnecessary. It won't... She's been through enough, right? Like, we don't need that. It won't change her character. It will just... She might regress. It's not going to go, I don't see the point. It's just more misery for no reason. And there are way more interesting things that can happen between Harry and Sansa than that. So I'm going to put that as not going to happen. Is it dark? Yep, it is dark. I've made the text too big now. I'm going to put it here. Let's put it on par with Brienne killing Jaime. Not on par because it'd be higher, but there's no. So, yeah. Hey, it's not a dark theory stream if we haven't, if we're not talking about stuff like that. Jesus. Okay. Okay, and just to get out of the way, there's a similar one with Littlefinger. Littlefinger doing the same thing. No, I think he's too smart for that, and I think his downfall will definitely come from being obsessed with Sansa and almost underestimating her, and also thinking that he can mold her like clay, and then the apprentice becoming greater than the master, blah blah blah. Basically a good version of what happens in the show. This doesn't need to happen. This does not need to happen. Yeah, so I'm gonna have it as not, and it's definitely not gonna happen. And it is dark though, so I'll put it up here. Why did I put the Harry the Heir one there? That should be like... That's not happening at all. Oh, whatever. This is a mess anyway. Okay, what's next? Okay, this one is kind of similar, but not quite. This is... Sansa will consensually seduce Littlefinger. Consent being in huge fucking asterisks and buried under a mountain of salt because, of course, she's a child. Now... There's no way of knowing what may have happened following a 5-year time skip where Sansa goes from being 13... Was she 13 by the... Isn't she 14 by the Winds of Winter sample chapters? Right? Maybe? I don't know. But there's a difference between 18-year-old Sansa in the Eyrie versus 13, 14-year-old Sansa in the Eyrie. So I don't think this is going to happen. I really don't want it to happen. Maybe I could have seen this happening after a time skip where she basically uses his weakness against him. That's part of taking control of him, using Cersei's advice, about using what's between her legs. There's a weird line in season 8, remember, where she's like, Littlefinger, Cersei, they all taught Ramsay, they all taught me how, whatever. And it's like, what? No, they didn't. You haven't done anything. Like, Ramsay didn't teach you anything. Littlefinger didn't teach you anything because he became an idiot. Cersei taught you stuff that you never applied. So what were you talking about? Anyway, I'm I'm going to put it slightly more likely than I'd like to, just because maybe George will be weird, or maybe there's an idea he had for a time skip that he's still going ahead with. And it has been said that the Vale chapters will be controversial. Wasn't it Elio said that? So, yeah, it will be dark. Maybe it will happen. I hope not, because we don't need that, but... Alright, well, enough about Sansa having sex. Let's move on to the Sweet Robin stuff, which I think can be divided into two. So, this is Littlefinger killing Sweet Robin. So that when Sansa will be married to Harry the Heir, and Harry the Heir will become the Lord of the Vale, and then we have the Lord of the Vale and the Lady of Winterfell united together to retake the North and maybe retake the Riverlands, and Littlefinger will be the power behind the throne, but we also don't really know what his plan is. The thing is, though, as we were talking about earlier, Littlefinger has announced this. He has announced his intention. Not actively. He hasn't said, "Hey Sansa, let's kill Sweet Robin." Excuse me. He's more heavily implied it. He's heavily implied, oh, he's sickly and so on, and he, is more sweet sleep in his drink. And maybe the idea is gradually poison him, or one day he gets a little bit too much sweet sleep and the maester is blamed and thrown out the sky cell or the moon door. But because it's so obvious, maybe it won't happen. And because Sweet Robin is a bit of a sickly underdog and everyone assumes he's going to die, maybe he won't. Maybe he'll make it to the end, like in the show, where he... excuse me. The end of the show where he ends up at that awkward council meeting, and he... not council meeting, but kind of like semi-King's Moot thing in the Dragon Pit, where he's suddenly become a Chad. That'd be pretty cool. But I'm going to put it halfway, because I think it could go either way. Maybe he will do it, maybe he won't. If he doesn't, it will be because things have changed. But honestly, he could. See, the thing is, maybe the introduction of Harry the Heir is another time skip issue. Where it's like, okay, Sansa marrying Sweet Robin, they are too young. So, again, you can do betrothal, but George isn't a fan of betrothals. He seems to be obsessed with, like, child marriages and fulfilling those child marriages, even though it often makes no sense and isn't an immediate necessity, and often comes with the death of the children and the mother, and didn't even happen in medieval times that often, but he's obsessed with every child marrying adults for some reason. So maybe he was like, no, I don't want a betrothal, I want Sansa to marry Sweet Robin, but the time skip isn't happening, so he's too young, so let's have her marry Harry the Heir and then whatever. But there are also theories that Harry the Heir will be killed, for example, and that will scupper Littlefinger's plans, right? Like, he will, at the jousting tournament, to decide the winged knights, the 8 members of Robert Arryn's personal guard, because he wanted one more than the King's Guard, that he will, like, die in the joust, and it will be a big surprising moment, and they realise, okay, now we need to use Sweet Robin instead. I'll put it halfway, and therefore block out the text, because it's white and white and you won't be able to see it. How dark is it? Pretty dark. The child dying. But he's kind of annoying, so not as dark. Like, I wouldn't be upset, but I would be like, that's messed up, because he's just a kid. It may be annoying, but he's just a child. And then the final Vale dark theory, unless there are any more in the chat that you have, is... Are you ready for it? Sansa helps. When you see the word Sansa, you're like panicking, like, no, please don't be another sex-related. Sansa helps Littlefinger kill Sweet Robin. So I think Sansa does have memory issues. Not not because she's has dementia or anything, but I mean, due to trauma, she blocks out traumatic memories. She forgets elements of Pycelle inspecting her. He clearly goes beyond what he should, and she sort of blocks that out. He misremembers the Hound kissing her. He makes that scenario way more romantic, I think, as a way to deal with how horrible it was when he confronted her. And, Lysa literally ranted about how Littlefinger is behind the War of the Five Kings, and Sansa doesn't seem to reflect on it, because I think she's kind of blocking it out. She's young, she's like 13. So I think the idea is that while he's hinting about Sweet Robin dying, she's kind of pushing it to the back of her head and not really being like, oh, if he dies, it's natural. Of course, it's not Littlefinger. But maybe she will become, like I said, she will embrace the Machiavellian side, her inner Machiavelli, and she will help Littlefinger murder Sweet Robin, and that will sort of be her coming into her own as a player, not a piece. However, I think not. Right? Like, I'm not saying Sansa can't go down dark paths, and that wouldn't be interesting, but killing her, 10-year-old cousin? No, that's way too dark. That's too dark, and it's a bit of a... Is that her crossing the moral event horizon, would you say? Does that make her irredeemable? In terms of what her character is and what's come before. Because, someone like Jaime has done worse, right? But I don't think she's going to do it. If he dies, she won't be involved, or she'll be unwittingly involved. I think it's too much. And again, she could be involved in killing and assassination, but I think a child and her cousin, nah. Probably not going to happen. Is it dark? Yeah, it's as dark as Littlefinger killing Sweet Robin. So I'll put it up here and block off the rest of the text because I didn't think this through properly. Okay. So that's all the Vale theories done. Before we move on to the Westerlands, the home of the Lannisters, let's check out some of the chat, shall we? Let's have a look. And again, if there are any more theories that you guys have that I haven't mentioned, let me know. Dark theories. Okay. Clark says, I think Bran being king can be a cool horror-like ending. I don't think Bran being king is supposed to be seen as a good thing by the readers. Yeah, the show did a poor job portraying it. It being a kind of a dark, all-seeing eye police state ruling Westeros would be, but it's not really bittersweet ending, is it? I guess it's like a benevolent dictator, where it's like Bran has everyone's interests at heart, but basically the system is now locked under potentially this immortal, all-seeing being. I don't know. Mouse is a clue. The fact he's called the Mad Mouse. That's what Cole says. Ooh, will he run into cat perhaps? Interesting. He can be interrogated and tells little Lady Stoneheart about Sansa. So maybe he tries to kidnap her, fails, runs into Cat. The mouse is caught by the cat and informs her that Sansa's in the Vale. Or kidnaps Sansa, takes her to the Riverlands, is captured by the Brotherhood. The mouse gets killed by the cat, and now Lady Stoneheart has Sansa. But I'm also not sure if their paths need to cross. I kind of see Lady Stoneheart as this isolated character that works with Brienne and Jaime's story, but I don't know if I want other Starks to meet her. I don't know if I want Littlefinger to meet her. She kind of seems like she exists for the Frey, Brienne, Jaime, Riverland plot, and she kind of needs to die there. I guess I'm not a huge fan of the low fantasy political storylines and characters like the Eyrie, Sansa, Littlefinger, mixing with the more weird supernatural stuff like the undead. But that's just me. Yeah, people think bad stuff will happen to Sansa because it happened in the show with Ramsay. Yep. But that was just them. And the thing is, their justification, the showrunner's justification was, logically it makes sense that would happen. Logically, it does make sense that Ramsay would force himself on Sansa in that situation. Yeah, of course it would. The issue is them marrying in the first place is what people took issue with, because that wasn't logical. So you cut a load of things out, you twisted the story, you had this dumb plot that then led to a horrible thing happening. That wasn't necessary. No. A Song of Ice and Fire fandom, try not to theorize female characters. Yeah, I don't think any POV character will be assaulted in that way, because it's so. I know George can be dark, but that's not necessary. Yeah. It's funny reading back through the chat when not checking on it live, because like I said, one monitor, someone just says, pretty cringe. I don't have a clue what they're talking about. I think most of the Vale theories were pretty cringe, to be honest. Carl says, the sigil of a falcon diving into a moon, the sigil of House Aaron, does seem like foreshadowing for Sweet Robin going out the moon door. Yeah, that's true. Although, again, we've got to be careful when we talk about foreshadowing. Because I think, as a gardener, George doesn't necessarily meticulously labour over every single tiny detail in order to foreshadow later things. Sometimes he comes up with it because he's a hyper creative genius writer. He comes up with it. Sometimes he plays with it in the future, but I don't think he necessarily comes up with the sigils and goes, haha, this sigil will foreshadow 7 books later, this thing will happen. I think it's a cool idea. But maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm underestimating him. It would be a bit strange if political and fantasy never meet. That would be extremely unique. I've never seen that before. From Ellis. Yes. They will meet. I guess what I'm saying is, to what extent? Like, I know the idea is that magic is ramping up and all these storylines are going to coalesce. I'm just not a huge fan of a lot of the grounded political manoeuvring interacting heavily with the higher fantasy elements. It just feels weird. Like, stuff like... So Littlefinger meeting Lady Stoneheart isn't actually a great example of that, because Lady Stoneheart isn't super high fantasy. And that could work. But in terms of theories that, like, Littlefinger is a servant of the old gods and that he's like... So stuff like that, it's like, no, that you don't need that. You don't need to insert that kind of high fantasy into that. So let's move on to the Westerlands. But before we do, we've got a beautiful super chat from Kaiser Collins. Hello. €5. Thank you so much. You're a legend. He says, I know I'm late to the party regarding Clegane Bowl, but hear me out. If George was more mature in his understanding of soldiering, you could make what? Make what, Kaiser? 1 out of 2. Are you sending 2 messages? What's the limit on super chats? Is that the super chat limit? Oh, that's a bit of a... That's not fair. Okay, yeah, that was a part 1. Oh, thank you for the 2 super chats. That's very kind of you. Yeah. You could make a really good message of him refocusing his energy and actually using his skills for good, to become something he never believed existed. Yes. I mean, yeah. I don't know if you were here at the start of the stream, but I was saying the same thing. I was saying Clegane Bowl not happening isn't that dark, because actually I don't think it needs to happen, and it might be better if it doesn't happen. Like, I completely agree with you. Him refocusing his energy, becoming a better person, leaving the bitterness and cynicism and depressed, murderous nature behind is would be a good ending for him. I completely agree. Like, the Clegane Bowl hype was fun, but I just think it's sort of, it's done. We got it in the show, and it actually kind of sucked. Like, aesthetically it looked cool, but I don't know. Thematically, it wasn't portrayed very well. Watching Clegane Bowl in the show was like when you're super, super hungry and you decide to order a takeaway. And you don't need to, but you just think, oh, I'll have a takeaway. And it's just terrible, and you feel bloated and gross, and you're like, I should have just made some food. I didn't need this. I was waiting for so long, it came, and it was okay, but I didn't need it. So let's move on to the Westerland theories, which I've said about 5 times in a row. You guys are so patient, by the way. Okay, which one shall we start with? Okay, let's dive into the prologue of The Winds of Winter. Lots of YouTubers have talked about this, including Quinn the GM, my good friend. The prologue of the Winds of Winter. How should I phrase this? Yeah. Edmure Tully and Jane Westerling are killed during prologue. So the idea here is that lots of people believe the Winds of Winter prologue will take place from the perspective of a man called Soforli Prester. So what Jaime does is he says, okay, there's a bunch of hostages in the Twins, let's move them to Casterly Rock. They're not safe in the Riverlands because the Riverlands are so chaotic. So he orders Soforli Prester, one of his men, and 600 Lannister soldiers, right, to escort a bunch of important hostages and prisoners to Casterly Rock. And one of them is Edmure Tully, who will be allowed to basically be under house arrest with Rosalind Frey raising their child, whether it's a boy or a girl. Although if it's a boy, it probably will be killed. And Jane Westerling will be allowed to go as well, and the other Northern Lords and River Lords. Actually, Northern Lords, because the River Lords, I think, are basically being used to deal with sieges and being handed back. But I think mostly Northern Lords taking them over to Casterly Rock. No, I think River Lords as well, actually, for safekeeping. So the idea is that there'll be this huge escort that will be set upon by the Brotherhood without banners, and they will all be freed. And so then you have Northern, Riverlanders, Brotherhood without banners, all working together to fight back, right? Because a big reason the North and the Riverlands aren't rebelling, or at least are rebelling a bit more conspicuously and via darkling schemes, as opposed to outright warfare, is because the Freys have hostages. But if those hostages are released en route to Casterly Rock, maybe because Jaime let slip to Lady Stoneheart that that's what's happening, then we could have a situation where the Riverlands rise up against the Freys and take everything back, and the Northerners are able to do that as well, But Jaime is suspicious because he knows that Jane Westerling is a giant threat, and though she's been given lots of moon tea, maybe she's still pregnant, Even if she isn't, what if she gets impregnated by someone else and then everyone claims, oh, that's the young wolf's baby, his heir is alive? Because as far as everyone's concerned, Rob's brothers are dead and his only heirs are Sansa, who's missing, and Arya, who's being married to Ramsay. But not really. So because of that, Jaime says, keep some, crossbows on her. Make sure that if anything happens, she is taken out, she's killed, because she's risky. And I think does he say the same about Edmure? I can't remember. But the idea here is that you have this POV maybe from Soforli Prester's point of view, maybe from one of his underlings, because people have pointed out that every single point of view chapter so far has been from the perspective of a commoner, not from a noble person. Is that true? But so it could be someone in that escort, but probably Forley Prester. They're taking them to Casterly Rock. The Brotherhood without banners ambush them with the help of the Blackfish. Because the Blackfish has escaped, there are Northerners roaming the Riverlands, broken men. Unite them around a Blackfish who's good at sort of small tactical units and manoeuvres and all that stuff. So they will ambush and save them, but within the chaos, Edmure and Jane will be killed. Maybe accidentally, maybe by the Lannisters to stop them from being freed. But it will be a dark ending, because otherwise, wouldn't that be a pretty optimistic prologue? The prologue is usually very dark and sinister, and it helps set the tone of the book. Same with the epilogue in the third one, in Storm of Swords. And so having all of these people that we like being freed by the Brotherhood would be a positive moment. We'd cheer, we'd enjoy it. Weird way to set up the Winds of Winter. So maybe it'll be a Pyrrhic victory. Pyrrhic or Pyrrhic? How do you pronounce it? One of the two. It'll be a hollow victory nonetheless, because maybe Edmure, who we like, will die, or Jane Westerling, who we like, will die. I think this is very likely. I've got you're doing well, guys, putting up with my style of speaking. My style of speaking is like because I've got ADHD, my thoughts race really fast, so I speak really fast, but then suddenly it's like a brick wall where I need to think about the next bit. And so I will just stop at a random point of the sentence for like 5 seconds, then continue, and it's like, vroom, it's like the brakes constantly being put on. Edmure and Jane Westling, where should I put this? It's dark, it's another death. So at this point it's like, who dying is worse than a child, someone we know? I'm going to put it around here. I think it's likely. I think it's very likely, actually. Less so Edmure. I think Jane more likely. I think Edmure has a role to play. Jane, probably not. But, so for that reason, it won't be all the way here, but I'll put it around here. Yeah, sure. Again, I'm taking this chart too seriously. It's like when I was ranking the phrase with Quinn, with the ranking chart, and I was like, no, water needs to go down to ET or whatever, and it was like, it doesn't matter. It's just a bullshit chart. Okay. Ooh, Shelley says, arriving late, so someone probably already said this, but Sandor fights his zombified brother to release him from his unnatural state of being. Ah. So sort of a spin on Clegane Bowl being the Hound seeking vengeance. It's more the Hound being merciful and freeing his brother from his zombified state. Maybe, but I'm not sure. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it needs to happen still. But thanks for coming along. Yeah. So next up, we're going to talk about everybody's favourite horse. Tyrek Lannister resurfaces as a broken puppet. So this is the idea that he will come back as a political pawn who has been tortured and broken into submission. Now, Tyrek Lannister is a Lannister cousin. He's the son of Tyget, I believe, the only son of Tyget. And he goes missing during the riot at King's Landing, and people speculate that he was kidnapped, perhaps by Varys or Littlefinger. But most people seem to say Varys orchestrated the riot, stole Tyrek. Maybe it was planned, maybe it was opportunistic, I don't know. And there's a theory that he'll be used as a pawn for Aegon. Aegon will invade, and Tyrek will be the Lord of Castle Rock in support of Aegon. And Aegon's force will kind of be like the young, handsome, good-looking, quote-unquote, heroes. Stereotypical heroes of the story. Handsome Aegon taking the throne with his beautiful wife, Arianne. Who do we have here? Oh, we have Edric Storm, legitimised to become Lord of Storm's End, and he's a handsome young boy. Who do we have here? Tyrek Lannister, taking Castle Rock. You know, not the Kingslayer, not the evil dwarf, not the Mad Queen, but Tyrek Lannister. What line is he to Castle Rock, actually? What place in line in terms of succession? Because Cersei is the Lady of Castle Rock. I don't think she's going to survive Aegon. I don't think she'll probably get killed by Aegon, right? Jaime's a Kingsguard and will probably die with Cersei. Kevin's dead. Lancel is probably going to die soon, but even so, he's in the faith, so he's sort of given up his claim to land and so on. One of Lancel's children was killed by Rickard Karstark. He has one living son, Martin, and he has a daughter. And then it goes to Tyget, who's dead, then it goes to Tyrek. So Tyrek is, after Cersei, she is third in line. Yeah, she's third in line. But if Martin were to die, if Cersei and Martin were to die, then it goes to Tyrek, if they skip over Kevin's daughter, because they might do that. So we could have Lord Tyrek Lannister. And you know, that sort of guy goes into the theory I like, that Aegon's crew are all the sort of good-looking, stereotypically heroic good guys. You know, that's how history is meant to go. You know, like War of the Roses, he comes from over the seas, and he Owen Tudor, and not Owen Tudor, but Henry Tudor, and he saves the day. And he defeats the evil Cersei, and he takes over, and that's the natural bend, the natural tilt of history, and things kind of go back to normal. But then Daenerys comes over as the villain. I probably have to talk about this in a later Dark Theory video. But Daenerys will come over as the stereotypical villain, not because she's villainous, because that's how people view her. She bathes in blood. She kills people with her dragons. She has 3 terrifying dragons and rides a big evil black one. She has an army of savages, an army of eunuchs, an army of a ragtag army of sellswords and murderers. She has an evil dwarf on her shoulder whispering into her ear. Maybe some of the edgy characters will join her side like Darkstar, and then it becomes this sort of good versus evil in the mind of the common folk. And so even if, let's say, Daenerys and Jon deal with the others before they deal with Aegon, the people will not respect them, because they will be like, well, it's the bastard king, mad Queen Daenerys and her savages, versus the glorious Aegon and a handsome Tyrek and a handsome Edric and all of these young handsome men and so on. I can see George playing with that. But to circle it back to this one, this is the idea that he'll come back as a puppet. So I don't see why he has to come back as a broken puppet. I don't know why he has to be tortured. Like, he's a young boy, 13 or something. You could just say, all right, Tyrek, here's the situation. Aegon's going to take over. You're going to be Lord of Castle Rock. You do what we say, okay? Good. Now, why does he need to be tortured for that? I think he could be brainwashed or just convinced or whatever. Manipulated. And also, I like the idea. I do. So in terms of dark, it is dark. It's a tortured child. You know. It's not a dead child, so it's not up here, but it's tortured. And he does get Castle Rock at the end of it, which is more than can be said to what Theon's got since his torture. And how likely is it? I can see it happening, because George said we'll see what happened to Tyrek, and I don't think it's going to be if he's hyping it up, it's not going to be some random thing like, oh, he just went missing. Because I would have been okay if Tyrek just disappears because the commoners killed him. But George has said we're going to see him again, or we're going to find out, and I feel like you can't hype that up unless something's going to happen. So I think it's likely. I'll put it here because I don't think he'll be a broken puppet. I think he will just be a puppet. There we go. Right where you can't see it. Beautiful. I'm great at this. But it could happen. Oh, see, like I said, I like the idea of Varys snatching him. I hate the idea of Varys orchestrating the riot. And that goes back to what I've said about the obsession that theorists have and the fan base with everything being a conspiracy. It's like, isn't it way more interesting that in times of war, and famine, and fatigue, and corruption, the small folk are angry at the nobility, you know, feasting literally like kings while the commoners suffer in the war that they started over petty familial bullshit. And so they rise up angrily and demanding food, demanding bread, showing off their dead babies and tearing these nobles to shreds. Isn't that more interesting? And then the idea is Varys exploits this, maybe. Isn't that more interesting than, Varys orchestrated and stirred up a riot because everything's a conspiracy and he's a Machiavellian sneaky guy. That's so boring. Not everything has to be a conspiracy. Some things happen because because actions have consequences. And this actually leads me into my next theory, which is that Tyrek does not come back as a puppet, but Tyrek was in fact, as I said, seized by the riot, the mob, the rioting mob, and thrown into a big vat of soup, turned into a bowl of brown, because he was just a noble prick and they killed him. This is less likely, just because I said George has said we'll find out what happens, and what's the point in hyping it up for this long, and then 5 books later saying, you know, having a commoner walk past and go, hey, remember when we threw that Lannister boy in a bowl of soup? Like, what's the point? So not going to happen, probably. Is it dark? Yeah, it's been Tyrek being a soup. I mean, have you had horse soup before? I haven't, but I bet it's gross. So let's put our boy here. What am I doing? Okay. Yeah, leave it there. Whatever. It's all chaos. And there were only 3 Westerlands theories, actually. Because Westlands are one place we haven't been to, right? In Westeros, from the perspective of a POV character, we haven't seen the Westerlands. So not much is going down there. So those are the 3 from the post. Let me know if there are more Westerlands theories that are quite dark, before we wrap up with the Iron Islands. But before we jump onto the Iron Islands, actually, let me check the chat again. Golden said, I really enjoy your animations. It sets itself apart from most of the Song of Ice and Fire videos that don't engage much with the visual part of YouTube videos. Yeah, I sort of just noticed a niche in the market, really, to be an arsehole about it. I thought, okay, there's a load of great Song of Ice and Fire content, but it's mostly auditory. It's mostly people with awesome theories, analysis, reviews, and so on, talking over slideshows and pictures. And that's fine, right? I mean, look how many successful YouTubers there are, who are bigger than me, right? But I thought, you know what? There is a Song of Ice and Fire community is missing that visual spice, that flavour. I think we get it with Alt-Shift-X because his visual storytelling is very satisfying and well researched. We get it with Glidus, his takes, his bliss takes. The editing is hilarious. I barely laugh out loud. Well, I don't laugh out loud watching TV that much, and movies. Like, I kind of do the thing where I smile or I snort through my nose, but I don't laugh out loud that much unless I'm with friends. Glidus' videos are the few things where I can watch it by myself and laugh out loud. That's how good it is. But yeah, I wanted to throw in some fun visual stuff. I want like fast-paced animation, because my thought was originally I wanted to create History Haven, copyright History Haven, because I wanted to create I wanted to dive onto the whole animated history videos bandwagon, but then I thought, well, that's kind of overdone, like everyone's doing that, like oversimplified and so on. But then I thought, wait a minute, no one's really doing animated fantasy. No one's talking about fantasy lore, but portraying it in that kind of fun, fast-paced, animated way. So I thought, how about I take my style that I did for a couple of history videos that I never published anywhere, and I use it for fantasy. And I want to explore other fantasy, but I thought, where do I begin? I know, Song of Ice and Fire. Beautiful, sexy community, great books, lots to talk about. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. I've written down so many video ideas on a Google Doc, and oh my god, there's so many pages. I'm like, how am I going to do all this? I'm never going to run out of material. But yeah, in terms of future content, watch out, because there is going to be Crusader Kings 3 videos coming out. The Game of Thrones mod. Check those out if you haven't already. Check out the mod, check out my videos about it. My video, actually. But next weekend I'm going to be releasing a Iron Islands explained video, because in my first video about that mod, I said, should I do some videos like exploring every single house from the Duchy realm, the County realm, the Barony realm, the ones made up for the mod, the ones taken as inspiration from the show or extended / semi-canon, or the ones actually from the books and so on? And overwhelmingly everyone went yes. So naturally, I'm going to do a bunch of videos, each one focusing on a certain kingdom in the Game of Thrones mod. And I'm going to go through every single house. And I've recorded one from the Iron Islands. It was like 3 hours. I've edited it down to 40 minutes, but I still have more to do. So I didn't want to rush it and release it today. So that's going to be next weekend. And then I'm going to work on a video about Every Frey Explained, which I've teased for ages. That'll be a fun one. Looking at all of the houses of Harrenhal and the Curse of Harrenhal, and just delving into, big houses like House Stark, secondary houses like House Bolton, smaller ones that you don't really hear about. Maybe I'll mash them together into, 10-minute videos. Like 3 minor houses in a 10-minute video, that kind of thing. So yeah, expect CK3 Game of Thrones content and expect animated content. A lot of it is coming. And like I said, this is my job, so I get to work full-time on this. So I can't wait to continue growing with you guys. And like I said, Patreon. Patreon is launching next weekend, by the way. All of the content I prepared for it, boom, I've done it. I've created it all. I just need to launch it. And I think a good time is next Friday, next Saturday, Sunday or something. So there'll be all kind of goodies there. You can show your support, but also you get some exclusive content like videos and so on. So, shall we move on to the Iron Islands? Speaking of the Ironborn, let's move on to talking about the Iron Islands. Actually, before we do that, let me check a bit more of the chat. What happened is I went to quickly check the chat, and I saw one comment saying something slightly nice about me, and I went on a 10-minute tangent talking about how amazing I was. You're welcome. You only get that from Fantasy Haven, your home for all things fantasy. Oh, yes, Flippy Dippy Doo. The first prologue POV was a Royce. Yeah, so the prologues aren't all from a commoner's perspective. You're right. If Jane is pregnant, I don't see her dying. This is from John Potts. And at least until she has her kid. I'd be surprised if she is pregnant. Like, how long has it been since Rob died in universe? Like, wouldn't if she were pregnant, wouldn't it be showing? Wouldn't it be obvious? And with all the moon teens she's been having, I don't know. Are there no dark theories from Dawn? We'll be doing Dawn later. So I didn't want to do all the South because there's a lot going on. It'll take ages. So the next stream, I imagine, will be the Reach, the Stormlands, Dawn, and probably the Crownlands. All the Crownlands might be its own thing because there are so many King's Landing theories. But the rest of the South should be there. Let's see. F for Tyrex, widowed infant wife. Oh yeah, I forgot that. Tyrex married to an infant, and so people called him the wet nurse. And for once, George refrained from having a child marriage be consummated. Thanks, George. Yeah, someone says, so many channels are basically podcasts. Love this channel and Quinn. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You gotta think about the visuals. Because I love listening to the Song of Ice and Fire content as podcasts, but, sometimes you actually want to watch as well. Someone's saying the chat is pretty late. Yeah, the chat's kind of slow. I'm not sure why, because as far as I know, I haven't adjusted the chat. I haven't put on slow chat or anything, so a lot of people seem to be replying late to what I'm talking about. I'm not sure why. Can I change that? Have I done something? Have I done something? I hope not. Yeah, nah. Someone said, can I subscribe to your YouTube channel? No. You don't have my permission. Yeah, of course you can. Okay, let's move on to the Iron Islands. Right, so just to clarify, the Iron Islands is specifically theories about what will happen. Wait, yeah, on the Iron Islands, not in the Reach. So the whole Battle of Blood, Euron at Old Town, that doesn't count as Iron Islands. Which is a bitch move because I've been reading the chat for quite a while and I finally got to Iron Islands. Now I'm like, so anyway, I won't be talking about Euron. Oh, I'm such a dick. Actually, some of these theories don't necessarily. Oh, when did the Forsaken chapter come out? The sample chapter, because a couple of these theories involve Aeron Damphair, but Aeron Damphair is not in the Iron Islands. He's been kidnapped. Which, either way, I'll do it anyway. Oh, who cares? So. Confirmation that the Damphair, no, let's call him Aeron, let's be respectful, that the Aeron was blanked by Euron. So Aeron is terrified by Euron, who of course is an absolute psychopath, even by Ironborn standards. And Aeron seems to have these horrible flashbacks of someone entering his room at night, right? The screech of an iron-hinged door. And so the theory is that one of the many horrific things Euron did, as well as killing 3 of his brothers, was blanking Aeron. Was demonetizing Aeron. So I guess this theory is that it will officially be confirmed, that it won't be left as a teaser, that we will outright hear about it. I don't think so. I think if we were going to get a proper confirmation, it would have happened. Because the way it's described isn't like a mysterious, ooh, what could this be? It's sort of an implication. It's a tactful implication. So I think it would be unnecessary to outright say it. I think it's just it's unspoken. It doesn't need to be said. So it's probably not going to happen. How dark is it? Pretty dark. But also not super dark. Simply because we kind of know. Like, this isn't even a theory. I feel like it's almost a fact that this happened. Oh no, but the next theory renders this one obsolete. The next theory says this doesn't happen, something else happened when they were children. So actually, yeah, this isn't confirmed exactly. Is it going to happen? I don't think it's going to be oh, actually, no, I'm thinking about it of will George confirm it? But that's not the point of the scale. The point is the theory dark? So the fact that this happened, is it dark? Yes, it's dark. Did it happen? Yes. Will it be confirmed? Maybe not by the author, but I think it happened and it is dark. So I put some of these way too low because, like, this isn't death, but it's still bad. So let's cover some more white text with white text just to really fuck with your eyes. So the next theory is that Euron did not blank Aeron as a child. He did not enter his room and do horrible things. In that capacity, what Euron did is walk him. He assaulted him via the mind as opposed to the body. And I guess also the body. So the idea here is that, of course, is that Euron may be a skin changer of his many abilities. Perhaps he's a green seer. There are rumours that he was a failed or abandoned, or who knows, maybe successful student of Bloodraven. There are rumours about him, his dragon, that his black eye isn't actually a black eye, but is a chunk of glass candle, so he can see across the world. There's all kind of weird magical mystical stuff involving Euron. But I think that it's a possibility that Euron is a green seer and a skin changer. The Ironborn are, of course, descended from the first men, right? So Euron could be a skin changer. And as a kid, he'd go into his younger brother's room and would walk his mind and mess with him. Similar to how Bran walks Hodor, but Bran doesn't really know what he's doing, or that what he's doing is wrong. And it's different for Hodor, because Hodor's simple-minded. Which doesn't mean it's not horrible, but it's easier for Bran to do that. Whereas this is almost like Euron dominating his younger brother by mind-fucking him, quite literally. Do I think this is going to happen? No, I think the implication is closer to this one over here than Warging. So I don't think it's going to happen, but it's pretty dark. So I'm going to put it up here. Yeah. And I think, again, I don't know when the Forsaken chapter came out, but it must have come out after this Reddit post, because this is implying that Aeron is in the Iron Islands. So here's the final Iron Island one, because again, all the other Ironborn stuff is either in Meereen or in the Reach. So this is... This is the idea that the Iron Islands are not safe during when the long night inevitably hits. Whether that's the Winds of Winter or Dream of Spring, when the long night hits, the Iron Isles will not be safe at all. Oh no, they won't. And why is that? Well, that's because Hardhome in the show, big awesome surprise battle. In the books, happens off screen. Somehow even more chilling, actually, off page rather. Cotter Pike goes there to, rescue refugee wildlings, and Jon gets a letter basically saying that there was a massacre there, and one of the chilling phrases, within is that there were dead things in the water, which implies that sort of confirmation that the whites can go in the water, that presumably they can swim, because they're not sort of like dumb zombies going bleh, bleh, everywhere. They're kind of like emotionless puppets that can fight. They're undead puppets. They don't just crawl around and eat flesh. They move and they fight with swords and so on. So what's to say they can't swim? Or walk underwater like Pirates of the Caribbean? They'd be crushed by the pressure, wouldn't they? Anyway, the idea here is that the Iron Isles are not safe. That when the long night descends, when the moon meteors explode or whatever that theory is, that the whites will swim and ravage the Iron Islands just as badly as they'll ravage the rest of Westeros. again, this is pretty far in the future. I'm not sure when the Long Night's going to happen. I don't know if it will reach the Iron Isles or if it will be stopped in the north, like in the show. I do think the whole dead things in the water is intentional. I don't think it's a creepy line. It's like to let people know, yeah, you can't just go somewhere else. You can't just go to an island. You are screwed, no matter where you are. The Iron Isles are not safe. Yeah, I can see that happening. That would be dark. That would be dark. Why? Because I put it up here because it means the Iron Islands can be wiped out by the undead. Although, actually, does that matter if the Iron Islands are wiped out? Because the Ironborn suck. Okay, I changed my mind. Meh, who cares? That's a joke. Someone commented on my CK3 video. I made a joke about any Joanna Lannister stands out there, because Joanna Lannister basically wanted to wipe out the Ironborn. Obviously a joke. And someone commented, tone down the genocidal rhetoric. We get enough of that in the community. I was like, what? Sorry? But yeah. Why though? Why the Iron Islands out of all places? Boombler asked, as in, why would the Whites attack the Iron Islands? With the idea that they'd attack everywhere? Or is it more, why is this theory talking about specifically the Iron Islands? I don't know. I'm just copying it from the from the post. It is the most famous archipelago sworn to the Iron Throne, or rather within the vicinity of the continent of Westeros. But yeah, there we go. I feel like we need a few more. This Reddit post didn't have many Iron Island theories. A lot of the Euron ones are saved for the Reach, which feels like a bit of a letdown. So I'm actually going to go back on it, and I'll bring you a couple juicy ones, because that's not fair. A couple of extra ones. And if anyone has any more dark theories in the chat, let me know. If anyone has any questions, you want to send me a super chat, you can, and I'll answer them as soon as possible. If you just want to vibe, you can. It's up to you. Where is... Okay. Oh, that's weird. I'm looking at the Reach theories. Oh, what? One of them isn't even the Battle of Blood. Because this is 8 years old, remember. There's not even a dark theory about the Battle of Blood and the mass sacrifice and the Krakens. This is old. Maybe I should have updated some of this. Maybe the fans hadn't come up with the Battle of Blood, Kraken sacrifice, etc. in great detail by this point. 8 years is a long time ago, Jesus. Oh, okay. I missed out one. Okay, we're going to do one more theory. Unless there's a cool one in the chat. But we're going to do one more theory, okay? And it's back to the Vale. I skipped this one by accident. Here we go. It wouldn't be a Vale theory without me having to use... In fact, let's be honest. It wouldn't be a dark theory without me having to use lots of asterisks. Asterisks? Asterisks? Asterixes? Asterixodes. Like octopodes. Lynn Corbray will... blank and kill Sweet Robin. Yeah, I told you it would be a weird one. So you're probably thinking, excuse me, what? So Lynn Corbray is a knight from the Vale. He is an ally of Littlefinger. What he does is he names him. He's part of the Lord's Declarant, who are basically trying to depose Littlefinger. But what he does at the meeting is he brandishes his blade, Valyrian steel, I believe. What's the name of his blade? I can't remember. And in doing so, he embarrasses the Lord's Declarant, and he offends Littlefinger. And Littlefinger says, "How dare you? You came here to kill me. You're breaking guest right." And they say, "No." And he says, he manages to maneuver things his way by saying, "Give me a year, and I'll show you what I can do with the Vale." You know. But Lynn Corbray is, of course, working for Littlefinger. He wanted someone to act in a rash way, to give him the advantage, and he wants someone who's openly anti-Littlefinger, so that anyone who opposes him will rally around him. They will be attracted to him like moths to a flame. Ha! there's the virulent anti-Littlefinger guy, we can conspire with him. And of course, he'll be revealing all the secrets to Littlefinger. And what will he receive for his service? Well, Littlefinger tells Sansa all he cares about is gold and boys and promises. Gold and boys and killing. So that's quite interesting. So gold, obviously, yeah, gold. It's interesting that he says, one line he says promises, the next line he says killing, which sort of implies that what he's promising Lyn is killing. Letting him kill someone. I'm not sure what capacity that's in. And the whole he likes boys has been a matter of contention for over a decade. Since, in fact, like over 15 years, right? Since Littlefinger first gave that awesome speech to Sansa. That creepy but awesome speech about his future plan. Because when he says Lyn Corbray likes boys, what does he mean? Does he mean Lyn likes men, and that Littlefinger is providing him with handsome men to sleep with as a reward, as payment? Or does he mean boys as in boys, like little boys? Is Lyn Corbray a pedo? We don't know yet, but the theory here is that instead of poisoning Sweet Robin or whatever, he will give Sweet Robin to Lyn Corbray as a reward. To basically, as a reward for helping me, you can have Sweet Robin and you can keep him and do what you want with him, or do what you want for a bit and then kill him afterwards and dispose of him, and we'll just say he went missing. Which is really horrible. So this, I don't buy. This is weird. This is weird. And it's very uncharacteristic. Okay, putting aside the morality of it and how creepy it is, it's a bit out of character for Littlefinger, isn't it? Not that he'd give a shit about this, but more, it's risky. If he wants to kill Sweet Robin, he will kill Sweet Robin. He's not going to go, okay, Lyn, you can have him for a bit as a plaything, and then kill him. Why would he do that? That's strange. That's so risky. What happens if Sweet Robin escaped, or if Lyn is lying, or whatever? Yeah, if he is a pedo, and Baelish is providing him with, young boys, then he can just find any old peasant, right? Or Lysini prostitute. Why does he need to... Why give him the Lord of the Vale unless Lyn demands that, because he's like, it's a power thing, right? But, yeah. And then having him kill Sweet Robin, maybe, but it does seem like he's being set up to be poisoned. Whether it's successful or not, I don't know, but it'll be weird to be like, okay, Lyn, kill Sweet Robin for me. Like, what would that be? Would he, cut his head off? Like, why would he do it? Better to make it seem natural, because Sweet Robin is sickly and dying. No one would raise an eyebrow. Well, some people would, but it wouldn't be a big shock if he suddenly keeled over and died. Sickly little boy. If he went missing, or if he was killed in an over-top way by Lyn or something, it would be like, what? It would raise too much suspicion. So it's not going to happen. Is it dark? Yeah, because what the hell? I've given up working out what goes where, so I'm just going to put it here. How about here? There we go. Ta-da! What do you guys think of that one? That's a fun one. See, most that's the thing with dark theories. The point is that they're meant to be edgy. So naturally, they're all in the it's over category. They're all in the this isn't going to happen, is it? Because something being forcefully edgy isn't good. So George probably isn't going to do it. Yeah, Flippy Dippy Doo said, considering Littlefinger owns brothels and female whores are sometimes referred to as girls, I think it means male whores. That's what I think. When I first read that chapter, my instinct was, oh, he likes men. I didn't jump to, what? Like, I was like, yeah. Although women are more often referred to as girls than men are referred to as boys. That is worth bearing in mind. Corbry theory is dark for the sake of being dark, yeah. Okay. You know what? One more theory. Just one more. Then we'll wrap up. Because it's not fair that I tease the Iron Islands and then turns out all the Iron Island theories on this post were just about Aeron. So, Battle of Blood, let's do it. Next week we will be looking at the Reach in detail, and that includes what could happen to Old Town. But for this theory, this specific theory, let's talk about very specifically the mass sacrifice element of the Battle of Blood. So, Battle of Blood, mass sacrifice. The idea here is that Euron will cause it will basically partake in some insane, existential, Lovecraftian, eldritch, abominable ritual. How many adjectives could I fit into that? Into this evil ritual, where he will basically sacrifice a bunch of his own men and a bunch of the Red Wine fleet and the Old Town fleet attacking him, or defending rather, in order to summon something. Something from the deep. Because Melisandre, Moqorro, talk about blood in the water, blood, red waters rising and swallowing towers. So the idea is that there'll be such a big, the battle will be so huge and horrifying. There'll be so much death and blood and destruction that it will count as a giant sacrifice. And I'm sure there'll be magic rituals involved and chanting. And he has a bunch of priests, so he's probably going to use that as well. Some people say he will do this to summon a kraken that he will then bind to his will, sort of his little dragon almost. Or maybe the dragon, maybe it's more than a kraken, but it is the drowned god. That the Ironborn worship this Cthulhu-esque Lovecraftian eldritch being under the sea. Or maybe Euron will summon a kraken as part of the ritual, where he will shed a bunch of blood to bring a kraken to the surface to massacre a bunch of people, and then all the mass death will lead to the ritual. But the question is, what if that's the case? If the outcome of the ritual is not to summon a kraken, what could it be? What could it be? Bring down the wall? Bind a dragon? Become a super powerful Dark Lord? I'm not sure, honestly. I'm not sure. What do you guys think? I haven't actually explored this theory in a while, so I'm sort of throwing this out here. I know there are lots of other things about him burning down Old Town and the Citadel, a bit like the Library of Alexandria being burnt down. There are theories about him inhabiting the High Tower itself and killing the High Towers and sort of transforming this city of reason and faith and academia and trade into his evil fortress, like Sauron. You know, basically being at the Dark Lord at the top of the tower. That's sort of what Euron will become. And maybe Melora the Mad Maid is on his side. Maybe she's not just a mad maid, but an evil red priestess, and she will join forces with him or something crazy like that. I don't know. Let me know what you think. But yeah, something will go down at Old Town. Mass sacrifice, mass battle. He will definitely win. He'll probably take the Old Town for himself, if not destroy the city completely. But what's the outcome? Is it just to be more powerful? Because if it was it could just be a bog standard battle and he just destroys the city, but there has to be more. All the theories about towers beneath waves and red seas and all this talk of krakens. What could it be? Quinn's ideas is in the chat. He said Euron summons the Seattle Kraken hockey team. Maybe that's it. I would understand that reference if I was American, but I don't. But I'm going to assume that's an actual team. That's a cool ass name, by the way. Seattle Kraken hockey team. Just to clarify for some of the people in the chat, some people watching, Quinn's ideas is not in my chat because I am. He that man's publishing books. He hasn't got time for my bullshit. I'm talking about Quinn the GM, my partner in crime, my buddy, my fellow new wave of A Song of Ice and Fire upstarts, coming out of nowhere to tear down the establishment, tear down the podcasty people. And by tear down, I mean desperately seek their attention and get ignored by them. Quinn says, I think whatever he summons will help, will let him win the battle, but ultimately he won't be in control of whatever he creates. Oh, I see. So I'm seeing the battle as the ritual itself. Like, he is creating he is forcing the conditions of a big sea battle so that the death, as well as extra magical stuff and the priests and so on, it's the ritual itself and leads to something big. But it's probably more that you're on to win the battle and to conquer Old Town, which would be a bit of a feat. He will perform the ritual and, summon a kraken to maybe destroy the Red Wine fleet. And maybe it'll be in his control. Maybe he will lose control of it. I don't know. See, that's the thing with Euron. I actually don't know where his story's going. I don't buy the whole Euron is a con man and it's all fake, lol, because that's a cool idea, the whole a Dark Lord actually being a con man. Kind of being like an evil Jesus figure of look at these miracles, look at these so-and-so, and preaching evil and so on. A reverse Jesus. But that would be disappointing. I think Euron's been set up too much, especially with the Forsaken chapter. That kind of like shuts that down, I think. So I do think he's been built up for a reason. But I don't know where he's going. But I like that. Actually, I know. He's going to die fighting Jaime. My bad. After emerging from the sea. Euron's Kaiju versus Hightower Steampunk Mecha. Hell yeah. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let me have a drink. Okay. Time to wrap up, I think. Thank you for watching. If you want to, again, send questions, send ideas, and I can chat for like 10 more minutes, but if not, I'll yeet. And like I said, next week, exploring every single house in the Iron Islands at all levels, duchies, counties, baronies, within the Game of Thrones mod for Crusader Kings 3, sorry. And then I'll be doing that video next weekend, as well as launching Patreon next weekend. And then the week after, because I've had a couple of weekends where I've just done live streams, the week after it'll be more consistent. It'll be consistent CK3 video, animated video, CK3 animated every single Sunday for the next few months. Maybe a couple of breaks here and there, but I want to be more consistent. Definitely. And the next animated video I work on will either be a house history or it might be the infamous Every Frey Explained. Oh, and weekly live streams. Like, this will be a regular thing. Let me know in the comments and messages and so on when I should do them. Is this a good time, do you think? Or should I experiment with different days, different times? Okay, I'll wrap up by reading the last few bits in the chat. I'm offended that you think Jane and Eddie are getting killed in the prologue. Whoops. Don't take anything in this seriously. Look at this madness. What is this? I haven't even put this anywhere. Jesus. Where does this go? It's dark. Is it going to happen? Probably. Yeah, let's go there. We're back. Boom. I think this was more, I think the whole Winds of Winter prologue is going to happen. And I think it needs to be dark because the prologues always, they're not triumphant. Right? They always have a dark undertone. I think this is more Jane. I think Jane will. Edmure, no, probably. But, yeah. I don't need to justify myself to a man who thinks Shift X was British. How dare you? It's okay, Quinn, by the way. You were... someone in the last live stream asked if I was Australian. I can't escape it. British people and Australians are the same. That's what Americans think. Goddamn Americans. Speaking of insulting my audience, I've done quite a few live streams and I still haven't received a $100 super chat calling me gay. I'm getting disappointed now, and I'm very close to deleting my channel. If the Bloodraven theory is true, Euron's story could end with him being taken down by Bran. Like sort of, you know, the whole corrupted apprentice Euron becomes an evil... I was going to say evil version of Bloodraven. Even more evil version of Bloodraven, and Bran has to take him down. Yeah, Euron is the sort of... the super... almost like a Night King. Not Night's King, but Night King from the show. Like the super magical villain with a face. But except, unlike the show, this guy has a personality. But, you know, if the others are going to be this sort of weapon of mass destruction, this force of death, and you need a human character with a face and a personality and charisma to face off against as the big bad villain, maybe Euron. That would sort of buy into the whole Euron causes the apocalypse theory. The whole, like, Euron marrying Cersei, it's like, but if Cersei's going to get overthrown by Aegon, what's going to happen? Is it Euron marries Cersei, and then that just makes Aegon overthrowing them both? It makes him look like even more of a hero and defeating the evil, blah, blah, blah. Or will Cersei kind of, like, flee King's Landing when Aegon takes over, and then Cersei and, I don't know. Quinn has a good video about Euron's potential wives, including maybe Melisandre. Actually, do you mention Melisandre in that one? Yeah, you do. But, you know, some people think it could be Melora the Mad Maid, because the vision of him standing next to a woman with pale fire, and it's like, who's associated with pale fire? Who knows? Could be Melisandre going over to the bad side. Or Melora the Mad Maid being a secret. I don't know. Alright, see you, Quinn. Bye. Speaking of see you, I've been rambling for so long, and I still haven't got $100 super chat insulting me, so I'm going to have to raise it to 1,000. Give me $1,000 super chat calling me gay, or I'll delete my channel in a week. Would anyone really pay $100 just to insult someone? No, I hope they wouldn't. I hope no one takes that seriously. Okay, I'm trying not to do the thing where I ramble for too long, so I think what I'm going to do is I will answer one last question, then I will switch off. One last question. The next question I see in the chat, I'll answer, and then I'm eating. Thank you so much for watching, guys. We got some great interactions, good views. Okay, someone asked... it's not over. I said I was going to answer one last question before I eat. Okay, I've got two, so I'll answer two. One was Cody... I'm so bad. Cody said, do you think we'll get answers of the oily backstone and its magical properties? Maybe, maybe not. I tend to think a lot of that stuff is just fun world building that is not necessarily going to come back. And favourite colour... blue. I like blue because I'm really interesting. Okay, I'm going to end the stream. Thank you so much. Next weekend, watch out, because I'm launching Patreon, and there's going to be a CK3 video about the Ironborn. Time to end the stream. Every single time I do that, I do like a dramatic time to end the stream, and I click end stream, and then a sign comes up saying, are you sure? And it like ruins my exit. It ruins my outro. God damn it, YouTube. God damn it, YouTube. How dare you?